When I was a child, I always felt invisible. My parents only cared about my sister, Mary. Everything was about her. What she wanted, what she needed. I tried to tell myself they loved me too, but deep inside, I knew they didn't see me the same way. The day they skipped my high school graduation, something inside me broke. That was when I knew the truth. I was just an extra, not truly part of their family. Sometimes I wondered if they even wanted to adopt me, or if they just did it because they felt sorry for me. When I was 4, my life changed forever. My real parents and I were in a terrible car accident. They didn't survive. I was the only one who lived, but I was badly hurt. I stayed in the hospital for months, first in a coma, then struggling with pain and seizures. The nurses told me I had been unconscious for 4 months. When I finally woke up, I felt lost and afraid. I had no family left. No one came for me. The only home I had ever known was gone, and I had no idea what would happen next. Since I had no family, they sent me to an orphanage. It was a quiet place far from the city. The doctors thought it would help me heal. But being away from noise didn't stop my pain. Every night I missed my parents. For 3 years I waited, hoping someone would take me home. Then one day, a couple arrived. They already had a daughter, Mary, but they wanted to adopt me. I was happy. I thought I was finally getting a second chance at having a family. I had no idea how wrong I was. At first, everything seemed fine. My new parents were kind, and I started to feel safe again. But as time passed, I noticed things weren't equal. Mary was their favorite. I was just there. She didn't want me around. She ignored me, complained about me, and made me feel like I didn't belong. My parents never noticed. Or maybe they didn't care. Every time Mary needed something, they ran to her. But when I needed them, there was always an excuse. I told myself I just had to try harder, but no matter what I did, nothing changed. When I started middle school, things got worse. My parents stopped paying attention to me. I thought maybe they wanted me to be more independent, but I realized the truth. They had stopped caring. Mary started telling them she felt ignored. She blamed her bad grades on the attention they gave me. So just like that, their focus shifted back to her. I was alone again. I told myself it didn't matter. I was used to it. But deep inside, it hurt. I was still struggling with nightmares from my past, but no one seemed to notice or care. By the time I reached high school, Mary and I barely spoke. Then, I made things worse without even knowing it. I started dating one of her best friends. Mary was furious. She thought I was taking her friend away, just like I had stolen our parents' attention. She became even colder toward me. Meanwhile, my past caught up with me. The nightmares, the fear, and the sadness returned. I realized I needed help before I completely lost control. I started seeing a therapist, but my parents never went with me. They always had an excuse, usually something about Mary. Then came my high school graduation. I had been waiting for this day for years. I imagined my parents cheering for me, finally proud of me. But that morning, everything fell apart. I was waiting in my graduation suit when I heard a loud crash. I turned and saw Mary lying at the bottom of the stairs, bleeding. Before I could say anything, she whispered, "Jacob pushed me." My heart stopped. I hadn't touched her. But my parents didn't ask what happened. They rushed to help her and told me to take a cab to my graduation, alone. At graduation, I watched other families hugging their children, cheering for them. I stood alone. I missed my real parents more than ever. After the ceremony, I went home, hoping my parents would at least talk to me. Instead, they sat me down and said, "Son, we know you've been through a lot, but what you did to Mary was wrong." My heart broke. They believed her. No matter what I said, they didn't listen. They had already made up their minds. I was guilty in their eyes, and there was nothing I could do to change that. After that day, I kept my distance. But things never got better. When it was time for college, I was ready to leave. At first, my parents seemed happy for me. Then, a few days later, they told me they couldn't afford my tuition. I knew the truth. They didn't want to help me. If it had been Mary, they would have found a way, but I refused to let them stop me. I applied for scholarships and finally got help from a local bank. Without their support, I left for college. For the first time, I felt free. In college, I met the love of my life. Her brother, Scott, became my best friend. With their support, I built a new life. I barely spoke to my parents, and honestly, I was fine with that. When college graduation came, I invited them, hoping maybe things had changed. But on the morning of my ceremony, my mother called. "We can't come. Mary was robbed, and she's too scared to be alone." My heart sank. Once again, she had made sure my big moment wasn't important. I finally understood. I would always come second. Mary would always come first. Years later, I proposed to my girlfriend. I wanted my family at my wedding, but deep inside, I knew they wouldn't come. And I was right. On my wedding day, I got a voicemail from my dad. "We can't come. Mary was in a car accident." I clenched my fists, knowing it was another lie. But I refused to let her ruin my happiness. I walked down that aisle without them. It hurt, but I reminded myself, I had my new family now. My wife, her brother, and the people who truly cared about me. I didn't need my parents. Scott, knowing how much their absence hurt, did something unexpected. He photoshopped my parents into my wedding pictures. It was his way of giving me the family I never had. Then, he suggested I post the photos online to let Mary see what she had missed. So, I did. Soon, my phone started ringing. My parents were furious. "Mary is crying. Take those photos down now," my mom yelled. But I refused. This time, they were the ones left out. This time, they were the ones feeling ignored. It was a small victory, but for once, it was mine. Then, I gave them one final truth. "Read Mary's diary," I told them. "See for yourselves." They did. And for the first time, they saw the truth. Mary had lied. Every single time she had needed them, my graduation, my wedding, my big moments. She had planned it all. She had made sure I was forgotten. My parents were shocked. They finally saw how much they had hurt me. But it was too late. I had already moved on. Their regret didn't matter anymore. I had a new life, a real family, and for the first time, I was truly